Hello and welcome to Disc Dandies, a podcast where each episode two friends share a recommendation with one another. We talk about what we liked, what we would change, and try not to judge each other too much over our bad tastes. This week, we're canceling our friendship with 2020 because 2021 is our new best friend.
Clean. Okay, all right. Clean audio break.
Yep.
Happy New Year!
Yay!
Hey! I think I was blowing in the wrong end of the kazoo. I need to do research on this. I was given this really nice metal kazoo for Christmas from my girlfriend, and I still don't know which end I'm supposed to blow in.
On the range of like party favor / noisemaker versus instrument, where does the kazoo fall?
I would say it is a gift from the gods. It is a 10 out of 10, the pinnacle of musical taste and appreciation, ability, and art.
What we're saying is there aren't enough kazoos in opera, in orchestras.
Disc Dandies.
Okay, well.
Okay. Happy New Year!
Speaking of New Year, Will, why don't we just kick this off right? Describe this last year as if it were a person.
That's right. New Year's was just a little bit ago. We're now officially in 2021. We are saying goodbye to 2020 in style with a Disc Dandies episode. Describe 2020 as if it were a person. I put a lot of thought towards this question, and I think the best way to say it is that 2020 is the human equivalent of a speech jammer. Have you ever seen those speech jammers?
No, enlighten me.
Okay, so it's either like a device or an app that you speak into. It'll record you and it plays you back like a second or after you say it. So you try to talk into the machine while listening to the machine say what you're saying back to you at a just very slightly behind in time, and it basically messes you up. You cannot speak. It's funny. You should go on the internet and look at videos of people trying to talk while listening to a speech jammer. I think that's what 2020 is. You just cannot function correctly while doing one of those. And 2020 was definitely that.
I also thought about this a lot myself, but I'll just throw it out there. 2020 was Peter Griffin. That's all I have to say about it. Nothing else to add. Peter Griffin.
I want to ask you to elaborate, but at the same time, I know exactly what you mean and you don't have to elaborate. Or I think this might be a better comparison. It's the guy when you're like hanging out with people, not that you did much of that in 2020, but you're hanging out with your friends or you're at a party and you like say a joke and like no one really catches on to it. 2020 is the person that hears your joke, says it again to everybody as if it's their joke, and then everyone laughs.
You sound like you have a lot of experience with that.
I have a lot of trauma when it comes to a social interaction in situations like that. So a lot of my worldview is informed by that. So just so we know, we're all airing our traumas out. Hey, Jordan, what kind of trauma do you have from this year or before?
Honestly, I think we kind of agreed on this before we talked about the episode. I think a trauma I'm having right now is talking about how bad 2020 was. And I think for that reason, we're just going to end the 2020 ribbing here. We all know how nutso of a year it was. And I think this episode, we're going to be talking about the stuff we liked from it, right?
Exactly. We went to in 2020, in all of its badness, as most everyone else has told you, and just reflect on the good things and talk about what we loved that we experienced in 2020. And we both brought a list of items that we wanted to talk about. Most of these are going to be stuff that we didn't really talk about on the podcast this year, but just things that we experienced, that we liked, that we wanted to share, that either came out in 2020 or that we just particularly experienced in 2020. And looking back on this list, there was actually a lot of fun and enjoyment to be had amidst the trauma.
Yeah, I think in terms of entertainment, the world stuff going on in 2020 was important and, like Will said, traumatic. But I think in terms of entertainment, we had a really good year. Like things to like hold us over during quarantine and to distract us from COVID and all the other like really terrible stuff that was happening. This was a year where we saw artists kind of clicking on all cylinders, and we're just going to try to celebrate that. Obviously it's important to talk about the things that matter, and we will continue to try to have some amount of focus on that. But every now and then we do need to sit on the sidelines and just kind of try to look for that silver lining where available.
Exactly. And we, ever since the inception of this podcast, we always wanted this to be a place where someone could come and forget about the worries and troubles of the world, and just, relax and, just enjoy the good that's out there in the world. And then, they could pick up the burdens and then move on with life afterwards. That this could be just a short respite from, all the negativity and awfulness that's out in the world. And we hope that this will also be that for you. I have a list of 5 items and a couple of honorable mentions that I can do in case you poach some of mine, because we're doing this blind. But you have a list of about 5 yourself, don't you?
Yeah, so you did not want to rank these in any particular order, and I respect that, and I'm going to allow you to do that. But mine are ranked because I'm a pleb and I'm an internet shill, and this is my official top 5 up against your not really ordered 5 things you liked.
I'll say top 5 in no particular order. So we could still title this as top 5 clickbait, click here, learn everything that was great about 2020. We could do that. But mine, instead of ranking them 1 to 5, I'm actually telling kind of a story with mine. So I'm excited to share that with you. Well, let's not tease it anymore. Let's just get into our list, Jordan.
Yeah, man. I guess if you don't mind, I'll kick things off.
I'm going to make you kick things off. I'm holding a gun to your head.
Oh, Jesus. My number 5, and I'm going to frame it as this in hopes that it will frustrate you by the time we're done. It is not a 2020 thing. It was not released this year, but funnily enough, I actually experienced this my first week of quarantine whenever COVID first hit and everything was shutting down. It's Chernobyl.
Oh, okay. I've heard of this. I don't know too much about it. Why don't you explain?
Okay, so this is a show that I think that one day it has exhortation potential there for going for it. It's 8 episodes, I believe, single season. They're not going to be doing a follow-up or anything like that. The creative team that made this is going to be making the Last of Us TV series next, which has got me kind of excited for that. But basically, this is about the Chernobyl incident in Russia back in the 80s. Where they had a reactor meltdown that was absolutely devastating and near world ending, and about the group of people that stopped it, basically.
So is this a documentary or a docudrama? How close to real life is this?
It's a dramatic, I don't know how to, it's more of a biopic than a documentary. It's more has famous actors playing big name people from the event. It's more akin to something like Freedom Riders, the movie, where it's telling a story about real people, but it's got fictional elements to it to play up for dramatic elements,
I remember this being a really big thing. Yeah, so this would have come out pretty much right before the pandemic and quarantine and all that stuff. I remember all the buzz about this being before the big news of the year ended up being the big news. So this is a good pick for you because I guess it would be easy for everyone to forget about this show just because it's from the before times, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So here's the thing. This show actually has some real world reasons for why it was super important to me this year. I mean, just for starters, the show was incredible. It's some of the most well acted, well written. It's so focused to drama that I've seen on TV, and it's basically talking not just Russia's government, but how government as a whole, basically fails the people. In some capacity because of their self-interest and stuff. And that's its narrative from beginning to end. And because they're all about self-preservation as opposed to like what's right. It hit me really hard because while that was happening, while we were watching the show, I would go to Twitter and see all of the stuff that was going on with the coronavirus. It was insane how applicable the show's message and what was happening in the show was. This is something that happened back in the 80s that you think we would have learned from. It was still applicable in 2020. It was incredible to see, and the show just hit all the harder for me. So it's hard to say where the quality of the show like ends and the impact of the pandemic begins. But because of that, it's something I've thought about a lot this year, and I just couldn't imagine a universe where I didn't at least mention it, and that's why it's made my list. And I think it's a little bit too beefy of an exhortation right now for us to go into, but I do still think it's something that could come up in the future given the time permits.
Yeah, that must have been a real trip for you for it to be so poignant to the time.
Oh, it was insane. Tristan can like attest to this as well. It was just eerie how much of the exact same stuff was happening in that story, and you go like, man, I can't believe a government or a group of people that are supposed to be leaders got away with this. And then literally seeing the same thing happen on the news. It was so mind-boggling.
Yeah, if you wanted to have this be a future exhortation, you felt it was appropriate, I would totally be into checking this out with you.
Awesome. Well, hopefully we can come back around to that later on. But I did for now. I think I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to go too much into the details. But just to anyone who has the time, please check out Chernobyl. It's very depressing. So obviously, watch it with. Watch it in a good state of mind. Maybe when quarantine and stuff like that starts lightening up 10 years from now, maybe check it out then. But other than that, Will, I'm gonna throw it back over to you. What's your first choice you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I have one. Everyone's heard about this game. We actually talked about this on our podcast, so it's very near and dear to my heart. And hold on one moment. I'm gonna grip it and rip it here real quick. There we go. Lemon lime fizzy water. So the first on my list is Fall Guys.
Oh yeah.
We talked about Fall Guys on our very first episode, so very near and dear to my heart. This game came out in August of 2020, right when right in the thick of things for this year, and it ended up being a massive hit off the bat. Lots of people. I would honestly say it was a cultural phenomenon at the time that it came out. I wasn't one of the first people to play this game. I'm pretty sure you played this game before I did, but I bought in, a couple of weeks after launch. So I feel like I got to be, on that first wave of players getting into Fall Guys. If you want to hear what our in-depth thoughts on this, you can listen to our first episode. But just to recap real quickly, it's a wonderful, lighthearted game. You're these little bean people playing in this game show, and it's silly, and the physics are all messed up, and you bounce off each other, and it's just super silly fun. It's easy to jump in and out of. My girlfriend and I, even to this day, we sit down and play this game every now and then. It's just a fun game to chill and pass the controller around and do silly things. And it's just fun that way. It's kind of the perfect lighthearted game to kind of take your mind off of all the awful stuff that happened in 2020. And just recently, they put out a season 3, which is winter themed. Have you played any of season 3 of Fall Guys yet, Jordan?
I haven't yet. I've been slaving away at Dark Souls. I know it. Throw your stones at me.
Oh, no worries, man. I've been playing a bit of season 3, kind of getting back into it, and I really love what they're doing with season 3. They're adding new courses, and they're really listening to players when they say that they want less team games. They want more courses like Slime Climb, where it's races from the beginning to the end with all sorts of crazy obstacles, such as Big Yeetus. They're really listening to that. It's a winter theme, so there's ice and then presents and all sorts of Christmas stuff. And I really enjoy what they did with season 3.
Yeah, it seems like they're definitely dead set on making sure that game stays a success. And I think that listening to the people playing your game, it is the right way to go for something like Fall Guys anyways, because I think that community, at least from my interaction with it, is very loud, but also very positive. They're very vocal, but if you see people talking about Fall Guys on Twitter or Reddit or anything like that, it's generally pretty positive, and I think that it's a good community to take the suggestions from as long as it stays that way.
I've gotten that impression too. I would definitely say that that's Correct. It's unfortunate that Fall Guys, like most things that get super popular, drop down in popularity, and then of course it's so easy to say, "Oh, this game's dead. No one cares about this game," and that really isn't true for this game. This isn't a game I would play over and over again all the time, but this is absolutely a game that when a new season comes out, I can pick it up, I can play it, for like a week or so, put it away whenever I'm in the mood for that kind of gameplay. I can always pick it back up. It'll always be there, accessible for me to get into. A lot like Binding of Isaac for me. I go a long time without playing that game, but when I get into it, I get really into it, and then I put it away, and I know it'll always be there for me. And Fall Guys, I think, is one of those games. So I'm just really glad that this game saw the success that it has.
Yeah, and so here's the thing too about Fall Guys' success. It's like, yeah, it started off as just like a straight phenomenon, and whenever we say it tapered off, we mean it instead of being the number one thing on Twitch, it fell down to like the top 10. So it's still very successful in that regard. It's just other things have come and gone as this quarantine, as this year has proceeded.
For sure. But that's first on my list. What is your number 4 for favorite things you experienced in 2020?
The absolute work of art, volleyball anime Haikyuu.
Oh, okay. This is another one that I know about but have never seen.
Okay, so I've mentioned this before, I believe. I'm not done with season 2 yet. I know that this is not, unless we're like getting paid to do this podcast down the road, this is not going to be an exhortation that comes up. It's just too long. It's 2 26 episode seasons. It's a bit too much to kind of encapsulate what makes a series great, which is the slow progression and unification of this team of people playing volleyball. It's more about the people than it is the game, I feel like. And whenever they are playing the game, it's very fun. I understand what's going on. They do a good job of explaining the positions and what every member of the team is supposed to be doing without it feeling like reading a book. And it has an insane amount of heart. Mm-hmm. Like there is very like bittersweet or somber moments, mostly just among like senior players on the teams that are experiencing their last season of volleyball and maybe aren't meeting the expectations that they had in mind. I think it more tackles passion for things that we care about than it does sports, and like, I think anyone can relate to the show based on things that they feel very strongly about. And the characters, as well as the structure of the story are very like anti-cliche in that way. Whenever you think it's going to go one way, it does not. And it usually has a really good lesson as a result.
I have a lot of respect for pieces of media that seem like they're about one thing, but are really more about the human stories behind it. Like, I'm sure, like, if you were trying to get people to watch this, you would have to be like, oh, it's not really about volleyball, or volleyball is like not the only thing it's about. It's really more about, the people playing it, their struggles, and how they come together as a team. And it's, interesting for people who aren't just into the volleyball aspect. For shows and other things that can do that, I think that's really great storytelling, even though it's a little frustrating to have to get people past that initial that initial impression that's just about the excitement and drama of this very particular sport.
It's so weird because it's like, I don't think there are many scenes where they're not on the volleyball court. Like, the majority of the show takes place there, but it's wild how it can be that way. But that's just not always the focus, like it's more just the like learning your teammates and learning how they perform at their best and how you can lift them up and do better for them and with them. And it's just very like poignant, it does a lot of really unexpected things with the premise, which I just had a lot of respect for, because we started off and we were enjoying it because it's a very funny, very heartfelt show. But the deeper you make it into the series, you realize it's trying to say something much bigger than what it would have you think at first. But yeah, that's Haikyuu. I could not recommend that show enough, and I hope we get to talk about it again later in the future. But as for that, I think I want to hear what your second choice is.
It might be permanent, but I hope it's not. But it does definitely have a very long-standing place in my to-watch anime list.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So for my next thing on my list, in Fall Guys, there is a mini game called Fall Ball, and it is the most frustrating thing that you can imagine if you're losing, and then like the most exhilarating thing that you can imagine if you're winning. This is where balls will fall out of the sky, and it's like soccer. So you and your bean people walk around and very unskillfully try to knock the balls into your opponent's goal. This reminded me of a game that I had always heard about but never played. It reminded me of Rocket League. Now, Rocket League came out in 2015, but it went free to play in 2020. And that's exactly when I decided to jump into Rocket League. And let me tell you, this is one of the most addicting games I've ever come across in my entire life.
I know that your list is in no particular order, but in terms of things that I've seen you engage with this year, this is probably this is probably the first thing I would think of if you asked me what Will was up to. Because like Rocket League, it was like a revelation for you, right?
I hate this game, and I never want to play this game ever again. But I did sink many, many hours into this, and I really think that I'm going to probably sink a lot more into it in the coming year. For those of you that don't know about Rocket League, it's basically soccer with cars. And, I was really inspired by Fall Ball to play this game once it became free to play. I'm not any good. I can't do any of the aerial stuff like that. I'm one of those players that just sits on the ground and waits for the ball to fall down before I can hit it. This is just, it's really addicting. It's really fun. The way they designed the game, it really works. And it's a really good game to have on one screen while you're like, watching a video podcast on your other screen, or just like watching something and not taking either too seriously. It was just a really great way for me to like spend time and take my mind off of things this past year.
Yeah, it has a good balance of being extremely stressful whenever something doesn't go your way, but also being very stress relieving because it's just so goofy and the tone is great. It's a very exuberant, fun game.
As long as you don't listen to anybody that speaks to it. I have encountered some toxicity in this game that I think was very unfortunate, which I don't like, but the game is just so good that I'm willing to kind of breeze past that, let it roll off my back. Just the game without the people talking to you, it is, as you said, just fun and just let you, kind of just be in the moment and just absorb and kind of take your mind off things.
I think that's something we can like kind of give Rocket League kind of an excuse from, mostly just because there is a level of popularity that your game reaches that you just have too many people playing to cultivate a community. All you can really do is reactively ban people, and like try to moderate. But Rocket League is such an enormous game at this point. It's akin to stuff like Call of Duty, where it's like, sure, you have fine people playing the game, but the people who talk a lot are probably shitheads,
I don't want to be good at Rocket League. I want Rocket League to just be a game I can pull something else on my screen and just, waste an hour. But yeah, so that's Rocket League. That's my second one. What is next on your list, Jordan?
This one was my game of the year up until like a month or so ago. And I did not think that anything could top it because it's just that damn good. But Hades.
Oh, yes.
Hades, the Greek mythological roguelike, has some of the sexiest voice acting for both the male and female portions of the cast I've ever heard in a game. If you're on the bi spectrum, good luck. This is a thirst trap. Yeah, so it's one of those games that it takes cues. I think we talked a little bit about it during our Binding of Isaac episode, but it takes cues from games like Rogue Legacy or Binding of Isaac, where you are repeatedly trying to work your way through dungeons to reach an end game. Whenever you die, you reset your run. There's a little bit more of a meta progression similar to like Rogue Legacy, where you can, like earn traits and abilities that carry over between your runs. But for the most part, you're having to start back from ground zero with more specific abilities that you earn. Just to kind of like talk about why this game is so special within that genre. Okay, so Supergiant has a history of working their gameplay mechanics into their story, and the roguelike element of Hades is essential to the story because it's about Zagreus, the son of Hades, trying repeatedly to escape the depths of hell, and his father working against him to keep him there. And so every time you die, you start back off down in the chambers of of your father's realm, and you have relationships with other gods and chthonic gods, which are like a kind of a different pantheon from Greek mythology that you interact with and build relationships with. There's so much story and depth to all of that. You would think that you would hit some repeated dialogue, but you almost never do. You're constantly building your relationship with these people and your understanding of them and helping them with their own journeys in the meantime.
Hades is at the top of my list of games I really want to play as soon as possible. I can't bring myself to actually spend the money to buy the game. I'm going to need you to have Hades be an exhortation down the road so you can force me to play this game, because I really want to play this. I know that this is going to be right up my wheelhouse. I love, things like Binding of Isaac. I loved Bastion. That was the only Supergiant game I played, but I need you to force me to play this game.
Dude, I was going to try not to say this, but it's coming. I'm 100% going to exhort this game to you in the near future. I don't know how far off, but yeah, sorry to spoil that. It's coming. Prepare yourself. Will, I know you will love this game. Based on your interests and your love for Binding of Isaac, you are going to love this game.
I'm really looking forward to trying it. Everything I've heard about it makes it seem like it was great. And any kind of hesitation I had, other than just spending the money, was kind of wiped away by being surprised to see it be nominated for so many awards at the end of the year. I didn't even think it was that lauded, but apparently everyone loved this game. They got nominated for all sorts of awards.
Yeah, it's because whenever you think you've seen everything and you think you understand what the game's trying to do, it goes to the next level. It is very, very powerful with its storytelling and character development, and how it integrates that into the gameplay and the roguelike elements of it. I have not seen it done in this way in any other game before, and it's there aren't many games that I would consider perfect or even put near that category, but Hades flirts with that a lot. It is so close. It is very, very good and well made.
Super looking forward to trying this game out in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I hope we do it soon. But from there, I want to hear your third choice.
So my next one is actually a medium that we really haven't talked about on this podcast, and that's music. I actually listen to a lot of music. It's definitely something I'm super into. And I found this album this year, and I've just been listening to it on repeat over and over and over again. But it's a little weird. It's called Stardust and Blue. And I would describe this as a light jazz album with a heavy city pop influences. And for those of you who don't know, city pop is basically a form of pop music that was popular in Japan back in the 80s during their economic boom. If you heard it, you would probably recognize it. The number one song that people know of that style is Plastic Love. That's super popular on YouTube. Have you heard that song, Jordan?
No.
Okay, yeah, but lots of people know Plastic Love. This is such a nice album. It's very short, 7 songs. It does not overstay its welcome at all, and I just really like that really tight, very well-designed package. The songs are sung by I believe that she's a well-known singer, Kade, with music production by jazz musicians. I think one of them's a musician and one of them's an actual band. But they're well-known in the Japanese jazz genre, the band Lamp, and then a musician, Uwano Sora. And this is it leaves a very light, shimmering impression with great instrumentation underneath the singing. And this is just the type of album that I can just listen to over and over and over again. It's just, I'm not really a vibes guy, but this is definitely one album that gives off a very specific vibe, and you just enjoy it from start to finish, and you just feel better after you're done with it. You feel like all your stresses have melt away, and you fall into this very shimmering world of light jazz. It's just a great album.
That sounds great. First of all, you being a jazz listener is hilarious and amazing to me. It's totally in line with you. Okay, so to your point about a 7-track album being one of your picks, it's I love really focused albums that are a piece on its own as an album. It's not just one individual song that you hear on the radio that carries the album. It's like the whole work is what you're here for.
Oh, absolutely. All of these songs are very much like they're very even in terms of quality. You wouldn't, there's not really one that you could pick out and be like, this is the single. All the rest of these are filler. It's very much a package. And you've picked any of the songs out, they all stand on their own and also fit perfectly into the album.
That's awesome. I mean, you'll have to get me on board with this as well. We'll have to consider some music exhortations in the future. We should be able to do that, right?
We'll have a conversation about that. That's definitely something I'm thinking about too. But we'll tinker around with that. But I'll send you a link to this, and I'll also send you a link to Plastic Love, because I think that's where you really need to start with this type of music. But yeah, that's my pick for this spot in the list. And I want to hear what you have next.
Okay, yeah. So my runner up for work of art of the year, we'll call it, is actually the final season of The Good Place. I don't know if you've watched any of that. Have you?
I've caught a couple episodes here and there. I know the gist of the show, and I've liked what I've seen so far, especially Ted Danson.
Yeah, Ted Danson's great. Kristen Bell has been like a get since the series started because she plays a scumbag so well on the show. Mm-hmm. And her journey through the show has been like really great, because if you're not familiar with The Good Place, it's a show about the afterlife. It's literally like the first episode, Kristen Bell's character wakes up in front of Ted Danson, who informs her that she has died and has gone to the good place.
Which is supposed to be, we're supposed to imagine it as heaven, right?
Yeah, or a heaven equivalent. Hey, you did good things. You are now in a place where you're going to be happy for eternity. Pretty much in the first episode, opening minutes after she finishes talking to Ted Danson, I'm going to go ahead and spoil this. So spoiler alert for A Good Place first episode, which I think everyone knows this twist now at this point, even if you haven't seen it. It's revealed that she was misassigned to the good place. She was actually a really horrible person in her life. And it was a mistake that she was sent there. With a premise like that, I remember watching the first season and kind of saying to myself, I don't know how they can carry this plot forward for a whole season without it getting stale. Not only did they do that, they, without going too much into specifics, they drop another really big humdinger at the end of the season. And I said to myself again, how can this series continue to exist with these revelations? Like there's no sense of formula that can come from this. It's like this isn't something that can survive the revelations that are happening. But what ends up happening over the ensuing 3 seasons after that is just insanity in terms of them taking the existing formula, turning it on its head and going to the next like step with it, and telling a greater, I guess, like comedic story that also has, just like, to use the term again, just a lot of heart. But it's a deep exploration of morality in the afterlife and what makes a good person, and basically how we can become that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And it does all that while being really funny, right? I understand that this is made by not the same people, but some of the same people that did Parks and Rec, right?
No, yes, it is for the most part the same creative director and some of the writers. So yeah, it has very much that Parks and Rec humor. It is hilarious from beginning to end. There are a lot of memes. This is just like a giant meme generator show. Lots of reaction gifs have been born from it. It is hilarious.
Do you ever like pick up on memes or quotes from shows or movies or whatever that you don't watch and they stick in your head even though you have no connection to the show or whatever it comes from?
Yeah, that was actually how I got into The Good Place, yes.
There is a quote from the show that I love, that I know is from the show, but I've never actually sat down and watched the show too much. I don't know the characters, but one guy, or no, I believe it's Kristen Bell says, who died and made Aristotle the king of ethics? And then the guy's like, Plato did.
Yes.
I love that.
Oh, dude, the humor is there's a lot of like goofy, like, good slapstick humor, but then like the writing itself for the humor moments is just like outrageous. Like you will go back through an episode you've already seen and find new funny things that you wouldn't have on your first view, because there's just so much happening. It is like an overload on humor and thought-provoking like philosophy, weirdly enough. Just to end this spiel, the last season, I at this point, I was still wondering how they were gonna like land this, because I was just like, it had been such an insane ride up to this point. But I was trusting them. I was like, you know what? They've carried the show this far. They've got to have an idea for where it's going. It delivered so hard in the emotional range as well as the humor range that I was like floored. The last couple of episodes in particular, whenever they had really like weirdly enough like resolved the conflicts of the show, and you just spent the remainder of your time with the characters, was so like thought provoking and emotionally rich and like funny. It was like it is probably the single most bittersweet season and couple of episodes of television I've ever seen. And it was a very devastating end in a positive way. It was incredible. And I can't like say enough positive things about it. I would implore everyone to go watch it. This is another show that I don't think I could ever exhort, because you have to go through all 4 seasons to see the magic, you know. But it's something that I definitely think that everyone should check out, just because it is probably one of the best deep dives into like how we can be good people.
Yeah, this seems like a great show. I'm hoping I can sit down and watch it sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Will, you're done listening to that. I want to hear your second choice.
Okay, so to continue the theme of great music, I want to talk about the video game Kind Words. Have you heard of this before? This is a real indie title.
I have heard of it. This is awesome. Continue.
Yeah. Kind Words with the subtitle Lo-Fi Chill Beats to Write to.
I got on a Steam and I saw you on this the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that you were doing some work or something like that, and there was like a lo-fi beats app on Steam. I didn't realize that it was a game.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's not really a game. It's basically a listening to music and writing letters simulator, which is a lot cooler than it sounds. I think almost everyone watching or listening to this will know about the lo-fi chill beats to study chill to on YouTube, with like the anime gif of like the girl writing or something similar. This definitely takes that aesthetic and puts it in a video game and lets you write letters to other people. Game basically takes place in this one room with your character and a lot of decorations that you can get in the letters, and people can write letter requests, and then you look through those requests, and it's all anonymous. So like they take the safety and like making sure that it's all ethereal and you're not actually making connections with real people. They take that seriously, but people will write requests like, "Oh, I'm feeling really sad," or like, I just went through a tough breakup," or "I don't know about this, tough situation between my friend and I." And you can respond to those requests and be like, "Oh, and you just write encouraging words to them. It's a lot of, "Oh, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Keep your head up. You deserve love," that type of thing. And you can make your own requests. And it's just really sweet. And you can send stickers back and forth and use those stickers to decorate your room. And it's just really sweet. It's a very positive community. And I understand they do a lot of work to kind of keep it that way. Like there's really robust reporting tools for things that don't belong in that community. And the community just keeps itself very positive and hopeful and supportive of each other. And it's just really sweet.
Can I add that to my list? Because I haven't played it, but that description is just so far up my alley. I really want to check that out.
I got my girlfriend addicted to it.
Dude, exhort me with that next episode.
I think so. Actually, my favorite part of this game is the paper airplane part. So you can do letters back and forth, and you can't respond to like people responding to your letters. It ends. So like, you can't like actually meet people or anything like that. It's all very ethereal like that. But they have a part of it where you can quote, say nice things, and you basically just write whatever you want, like an inspiring quote or something positive, like "you are loved," "stay strong," "I'm so glad that you're here," "you can make it through." And then when you hit send, the very, very cute male deer will take your paper, fold it into a paper airplane, and then you send your good vibes off into the atmosphere. Now, while you're playing, paper airplanes will fly across the screen and you can click on them and you can see the nice things that other people have written. And you can't respond to them. It's all very just out in the air, but you can click on it and it'll say, you were loved, you deserve love, stay strong. They also do a lot of chain letters, which are actually really sweet. It's a lot of like, favorite video game chain. Mine's Dark Souls. The previous one was like some Warhammer game. Keep it going, or like hug number 115 going. That kind of thing, which I think is sweet in its own way. This just has it's so good vibes and such a positive community. That's a really great place to come in and just feel good about yourself and just take your mind off of things.
You really like got me into that idea. It sounds so good that it's just the game has like community building interwoven into the core mechanics. That is genius.
Yeah, it's very twee. This might be some people would say this is a put down, but I don't think it is. It's very like a Tumblr aesthetic. It really appeals to that community. You could tell that the people on there are a little on the young side, but it's just a nice game, and it's really made me kind of be more positive in my own life. So that's my choice here. I think you have one last your number one for your list. I want to hear what it is.
Have you played or heard about the game Earthbound?
Yes, I have not played it, but I've heard of it. I've seen gameplay. I feel like I know a lot about the game, but never played it.
Yeah, it's like for the time period, it's a JRPG set in a modern setting. Modern in terms of like the 90s. When it came out, mm-hmm. They have made a sequel called Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Really?
Yeah, except instead of a bunch of children wandering around a modern setting, it's actually about a bunch of old dudes.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of dealing with their place in society as far as occupations go, and just like how they fit in. I have played one Yakuza game before coming into this. Yakuza 0, and I enjoyed it a good bit. I had a lot of fun with it. And from my understanding, there was like kind of an outcry when this game was announced because, it completely changed its combat systems away from the old Yakuza series, where before it was like action driven. This is like a turn-based JRPG. It has a new protagonist as well, who is, when put side by side with the old protagonists, just a huge far cry. He's a very, very different character. He's very out there and goofy and very like optimistic, where the last protagonist was very stoic and solemn, Mm. So there was a lot that fans were not happy about going into this game. But from what I have seen, like this game has completely won over both new and old fans. And for me, it has been one of the greatest sources of positivity in this year.
That's good to hear. I kind of always think of I've never played any Yakuza game. I've always assumed them to be very gritty, very in your face with like violence and like mature themes. I'm really glad to hear that this is more of a positive game.
Yeah, so I think that's like a misconception that people have, like until you play the Yakuza games. They're actually extremely goofy. The serious aesthetic is more of like kind of the game fronting, to you. Sure. But like a Dragon just completely shirks all of that, and like it doesn't even try to present itself as a serious game from the onset. They explain the reason for the game being turn-based instead of action-based is because the main character, Ichiban, is a huge fan of Dragon Quest. And whenever he gets into fights, he sees all of the fights as turn-based action.
Oh, that's very interesting.
It is genius. And it is just one of the the most endearing things I've seen for a character. Like, because when like their occupations too, like the game is built around your occupations, because through one end or another, Ichiban ends up homeless and he kind of has to work his way back into society. It's like a main like mechanic in the game. In your jobs that you get like in society influence your job class in combat.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so like if you become like a bodyguard, you have like a katana and like a suit and like these like really serious sunshades, and it completely changes your moveset. But then you can get like a job as a foreman, And then you have like a giant sledgehammer and you're in a jumpsuit and it changes your move set to more reflect what like a foreman would have in combat. It does that for all of your party members too. So like whenever you initiate a battle, they'll go from their normal street clothes to their like actual class clothes. And it's the writing is just so out of this world, like in terms of both humor and the serious moments. Like it walks a really good line between like illustrating the risk that Ichiban and his group are taking to restore order to the area of Japan that they're in, Yokohama. But it also like the humor is so good. Like I said, it's just such a positive. Like it's another game like in a year where like again we went through like kind of a lot of rough shit where it's trying to uplift the player, and like they do that through Ichiban, the main character, and his interactions with his team, his party members, where they're just all about like supporting each other and getting, you know, like uplifting each other in as far as their places in society go, so they can have better lives and become better people. It like not just in terms of like the story and the characters, but also the gameplay. It's just the best experience I've had this year.
So if you're like me and haven't played any Yakuza games, do you think this is a good one to start with, like your first Yakuza game?
Yes, 100%. It doesn't bear any reliance on the previous games. There might be some cheeky references to some characters you'll come across or something like that. Yeah, but the story is standalone. It is like wholly its own game.
Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know it was doing those interesting things. I actually, you sold me. I really want to try this game out.
Yeah, I can't exhort you with it. It's just too long. It is a JRPG in the true sense. I thought I might be able to at first, but like most JRPGs, like to get to where the game is actually doing its thing, you know, like where you've gotten like through tutorial sections and are like getting into like the meat of the game, it would just take too long for us to get to, you know. Sure. But I would implore you to check it out and you're like as a game to play, because I do think you would enjoy it.
Okay. You've sold me on this. I'm very interested in trying this out, especially if it's your number one for things that you enjoyed in 2020. I mean, that's high praise.
Yeah, and it's really tough because you kind of have to play it to like catch that magic, you know. But it's just like it does so many smart things. You'll notice a trend I have with my choices. They all do things I feel like that engage me to media the most, which is they take established formulas and they try to do something new with them, and they like push their respective genres and mediums forward. And I feel like Yakuza does that not just for the Yakuza series, but also for JRPGs. Integrating the mechanics into the world and story is just a great way to engage players, and also just to have the heart and positivity that it has, and it not being about just running around killing people, but about making people's lives better, is such a weird and awesome core mechanic in a game.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like an interesting game that I want to try at some point.
Okay, yeah. Will, I'm done talking about my list. I want to hear your last choice.
Yeah. So as we mentioned at the beginning, these are not ranked. So this is not my number one, but I'm saving this one for last. You know, we both love podcasts, and to love podcasts, you have to listen to podcasts. And I found a great one this year that I've really enjoyed. And that's the Trash Taste podcast. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't, but it sounds fantastic just on name alone.
It is a podcast, but it's really more of like a video podcast. Like it's like YouTube first, and then like you can listen to the audio only if you want. Even though it is mostly just three guys or maybe a guest sitting at a table talking, you know, its home is on YouTube. But this is a video podcast that started in the middle of this year, and it's done by three anime YouTubers that live in Japan. Maybe you've heard of some of these YouTubers. Joey, the anime man, Garnt goes by the name Giguk. That's the name of his channel. And then Connor, who is a Sea Dog VA. They both, or all of them, make their normal YouTube videos about like anime and like otaku / weeb culture. And I like all of their YouTube channels, but they started a in-person podcast where the idea is that they talk about anime, but really they more talk about like weeb culture, and then tell funny stories about their lives. They have a lot of chemistry between each other. You can really tell that they're, good friends. They're really fun to listen to, especially if you're kind of into that kind of culture, especially like online weeb culture. And then, they have a lot of interesting guests, including they actually pulled it off. They were able to have one of the hottest YouTube VTubers on the podcast as an in-person guest with their avatar in the video. To even think about what kind of technology they had to use to make that work, the fact that they were able to do that is just so cool. And it's, listening to them is so much fun. And this has been a great podcast to put, like when I'm playing Rocket League, have Trash Taste on YouTube playing while playing Rocket League. It's just a lot of fun. They have a lot of chemistry. It's a really fun podcast.
That sounds great. I'm a big podcast person myself. Just by the nature of my job, I listen to a lot in the background. So I'm going to definitely throw this to my list. I love goofy podcasts too, because a lot of podcasts are tackling world issues these days, which I listen to a lot of. But I'm eating my vegetables. I got to have some dessert too,
For sure. Yeah. This podcast really shows how like the most successful podcasts really live by how much the hosts like bounce off each other, how good just a natural conversation is. And when I think about like what I want this podcast to be and how enjoyable I want listening to what we make here be, Trash Taste is kind of what I'm thinking about. Like, if we could like have the chemistry that they do, like we're set. Like we are, as long as we keep plugging at this, we're going to be super popular. And they're kind of something that I'm emulating in terms of like interesting and enjoyable to listen to conversations. It's just a great podcast.
Oh no, this is you telling me that I gotta get good, right?
No, not at all. And the podcast is anime themed, but they really don't spend all that much time talking about anime. It's really more of just like it's a lot of being a YouTuber, but also just like funny stories about their lives and just like hanging out and all that stuff. It's just really good.
That sounds fantastic. I'll have to give it a listen for sure.
Yeah, so that is our list. I'm actually really surprised that we didn't overlap at all on our list.
I had a feeling we might not, just by the nature of our choices. I had a feeling that you would have some real cool guy choices, and I would have some really basic shit. And it seems like it shook out that way.
Oh, not at all. I was worried about probably not Rocket League, but I was worried about Fall Guys. I thought you might have Fall Guys on yours, but it turned out not to be.
Yeah, well, we had some media overwhelmingness this year, however you want to put that. There was a lot to consume this year, and Fall Guys was a contender for sure.
Speaking of a lot to consume this year, do you have any honorable mentions you'd like to mention real quick? I know you said you had to trim a little bit off your list.
Okay, so first off, Adventure Time, Distant Lands. It's a 4-episode miniseries, the hour-long episode apiece. So far, we've only gotten 2, and as much as I wanted to, really like give this like due praise and put it on the list, I think it might be a next year thing because it hasn't finished yet, and I feel like the best is yet to come. The next thing is The Last Dance, which is a Michael Jordan / Chicago Bulls documentary.
Oh, okay.
You don't need to be into basketball to enjoy the series, I do not think, because neither Tristan or I watch basketball. It's just a good time capsule of like the 90s and especially the 90s era Bulls. And the story they tell is just super captivating. It's a very good watch. And it's very short too. It's like 6 or 7 episodes, I believe. Then my music choice is actually Fetch the Bolt Cutters, the album by Fiona Apple.
Oh, okay. I know Fiona Apple. I haven't really I know her hits. I haven't really sat down and listened to any of her albums though.
Yeah, this was like a total vibe breaker for her usual subject matter. This is a lot more exalted is the word that comes to mind. It feels very like uplifting and big, very, very grand album, and it very positive in a sense. It's a really good album, and I'd recommend giving it a listen.
I love the title.
Yeah, Fetch the Bolt Cutters is great. The whole album is just like great from beginning to end. I love it very much, and I wanted to put it on here, but again, so many things this year.
Yeah.
And then last thing, I actually didn't put it on my top 5, but mostly just because we had already talked about it and I didn't know how I felt about that. Wodokoi.
Oh, yes.
I will say it was the best anime I watched this year.
I am so glad to hear you say that.
Yeah. I love Haikyuu. I watched some My Hero Academia as well. Love both those shows, but I do think Wotakoi was just it hit very hard. I was very happy to watch it. It's still dandy as fuck.
I'm glad to hear that. As we mentioned a little bit before, I don't know if we recorded it, but there is, I have more anime of that vein that I want to share with you, but I'm waiting. I've got other things I want to do. But if you like Wotakoi, I have more I can share with you.
Hit me with them. I would love to see more. I've actually been looking for more slice of life stuff, and it's been very difficult. All right, hit me with your honorable mentions, Will.
Yeah, I'll go through these real quick, and one of these is kind of cheating, I'd say. Helltaker was one that I did this year, and I loved it so much that I had to exhort it to you. Super short game. I think my first playthrough only took like an hour and a half or something like that, but I just really enjoyed it. I love the vibe. I love the storytelling. Love the characters, as we talked about on our episode. But Helltaker was definitely one of the games that made an impression on me during this year. System of a Down. Do you know System of a Down? Are you a fan of theirs?
It was like my favorite band in middle school.
They were my favorite band in high school, and they're still one of my top bands. Haven't made any new music in 15 years until this year, for a terrible cause, honestly. That the war that's going on in Armenia, is real terrible. That should not be happening. But in support of Armenia and the people fighting that war, System of a Down came out with 2 new songs: "Protect the Land" and "Genocidal Humanoids." Both of them are 100% bangers. I love them. And actually, a really funny story about how I found out about these songs. When I wake up in the morning, I have coffee. If my girlfriend's not up yet, I'll kind of put my headphones on, kind of listen to some music, and I just felt like listening to System of a Down on that particular morning. I put on the Spotify algorithm generated playlist, like, oh, this is System of a Down, and just listen to all of my favorite songs until I hear a song that I have never heard before, and you can imagine my jaw dropping when I see new art, new title by System of a Down. It was the most surreal experience. But I love both of these songs, and I really want these guys to come together again and come and make some new music for a reason that isn't war.
Yeah, that's awesome. I did listen to both of those songs as well. I like System of a Down a good bit. I also have a similar pattern whenever it comes to listening to things. It's mostly in the morning before everyone's awake. My job starts early, and that was one of those things I listened to one morning. Was just both those singles. They were really good.
Yeah. And then my last honorable mention is honestly just podcasting. This year when the pandemic hit, I was really inspired by all the rhetoric about, make something of your time that you're getting off. Have this be the year where you create the thing you want to create. I was really inspired by that. And it got me to get my magic podcast, Gut Shot, that I do with my co-host Frederick, off the ground and get those episodes going. And then Jordan came to me and we conceptualized and started Disc Dandies. And I've just learned so much about like podcasting and video production and just content creation in the last 6 months. And it's been so much fun, even though it's been a lot of hard work, and it's so rewarding. I just feel I can't go back to like not creating things every week like I do on Gut Shot and on this podcast. So just learning about podcasting and getting into the creative mindset of creating something has really been a great thing for me this year.
Really based choice that you made there. I feel similarly. That it was definitely. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have another podcast to record to look forward to every week.
Yeah, absolutely. But those are my honorable mentions. Just a lot of stuff going on this year, but there's going to be absolutely much more coming down the pipeline that I'm excited for 2021.
From here, you want to hit some quick hits?
Yeah. Before we leave 2020 in the dust, let's do some quick hits, get these out of the way, and then we'll move on to bigger and better things.
All right. So first quick hits I have here for you. Assign a letter grade to your 2020 entertainment experience.
I'm going to give it a B for one reason only. Due to my great shame, I dropped Death Stranding and haven't picked it back up yet. I still haven't played more than 8 hours of the game. I'm so ashamed of myself, so I have to give it a B. Yeah,
that is kind of not great of you as a self-professed Kojima fan. Death Stranding, I know going into that game, you were very excited about. What happened?
Honestly, I kind of wish I knew. I think it may just be like an anxiety thing. I stopped just because I kind of started getting into other things, and then like my anxiety set in, and now whenever I think about starting it back up, I just feel kind of kind of about it. Not. I mean, I really want to play the game, but it's weird. It's just like a little bit of anxiety that just kind of wells up. It's definitely a psychological thing, but I'm going to get over that hurdle eventually. Hopefully, 2021 is a year I'll get to do it and get over that hump.
Is it because you're afraid you won't like it?
No, I already know that I will love it. It's a I don't think it has anything to do with the way I'm thinking about the game. It's 100% like physiological way that my mind manifests anxiety about the things in my life.
We should talk about this more after the off air
with the therapist. But I want to know how you'd rate your experience.
Okay, so we all know what our like life letter grade would be, so we're not going to go into that obviously. But like entertainment wise, I got to give this year the Japanese S, which is above the A+. Last year felt pretty dry for me in terms of like big things I was excited about. 2019 just kind of really like hit low. I think it's actually been since about 2017 since I can remember a year that I was this excited about the things I was experiencing. And I think part of it is due to the fact that we were in the middle of amidst a pandemic and we were like stuck at home. But I just engaged with a lot of things that were very positive and fulfilling. And I had a lot of things exceed my expectations this year, like so much so that there are things that I didn't even mention in my honorable mentions that like really landed with me. Mm-hmm. And not to mention like entertainment wise, like you said, we got into podcasting and I have felt another area of like myself be fulfilled. And it's been kind of a stellar year for entertainment for me.
Yeah, absolutely. 2021 going to be bigger and better. What are your most anticipated pieces of entertainment coming in 2021? I'm not even going to interrupt you. You just fire them off.
Okay, The Green Knight. It is an A21 production. It is a film. I didn't watch a lot of movies this year because honestly, a lot of the movies I did watch really did not hit very hard for me. But this next year, it was a film that was supposed to come out this last summer, summer 2020. It got delayed because of COVID and all that stuff. But it is based on the poem about Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the Arthurian legend. And it's starring Dev Patel. He's playing as Gawain. I'm very excited for it. The trailer for it is just very atmospheric. Very excited for that. Another thing that's coming up this next year that I am just over the moon excited about, Ghostwire Tokyo. I don't know if you've heard about it, Will.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah, the gameplay trailer for this game, I don't want to be too overzealous here, but you're like a cross between a ninja and Zenyatta from Overwatch, and you're fighting spirits in like an alternate universe Tokyo, and it is just all my shit, man. It looks so great. My last thing, even though I'm pretty sure it's not going to come out this year, it is the single thing I am most excited about in this world and will probably, again, be waiting for until I wither and die, but Elden Ring.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, that's more like a 2022, 2023 thing. I hope it comes out this next year. There's a lot of rumors that it's expected to come out in March or April, but I doubt it. But I am extremely excited for that game whenever it comes out.
I knew that was something you were super into. Would you like to hear my list?
Yes, drop it.
Okay, I've got a lot here. I'm just going to rapid fire real quick. New Magic the Gathering sets. We have a really great year coming up. A Kaldheim, which we're in spoilers for. Viking Metal set's going to be great. We have the long-awaited Dungeons and Dragons crossover set coming. Strixhaven, which is going to be Harry Potter in the Magic universe. And then we're returning to Innistrad with a really weird set makeup that's coming up. Really excited about all those sets. There's a lot of good anime coming out, and a lot of these are coming out actually in the next couple of weeks. Promise Neverland Season 2, Quintessential Quintuplet Season 2, new Cells at Work plus Cells at Work Black, and then another season of Dr. Stone plus some other stuff that's coming. It's going to be a great year for anime. With music, Van Weezer, hopefully this album finally comes out in 2021. They've already released like tons of songs off of it, and it seems to be a return to form for them. Plus, it's about time for Ghost to come out with a new album, and I'm super big Ghost fan. They're definitely very like clockwork in their output, so hopefully we'll see something from them, especially since the Cardinal Copia character is now ascended to be a pope. Very looking forward to that. And then for games, The big one is Starfield. Again, like Elden Ring, we don't know if this is coming out in 2021. We've only heard bits and pieces of it. This is basically Elder Scrolls in Space by Bethesda. But I want to hear anything they have about this game, because this is definitely a game I will be on day one. Elder Scrolls in Space, of course. And then Deathloop is another game that I'm super into. The aesthetic of it, the characters, the premise. I really want to play Deathloop. And then like Resident Evil 8 coming out, the possibility of new Doki Doki Literature Club content, regardless of whether it's a pure sequel or not. And then any new Fall Guys content. Definitely looking forward to all of that. So 2021 going to be busy for me.
Yeah, so I do want to respond to your Magic sentiment. I'm going to kind of cross-pollinate our podcasts again real quick. You and Fred on Gutshot talked about the Dungeons and Dragons set in one of your episodes, and I wanted to be in that conversation so bad. I believe you guys were a little tepid on it. I'm extremely excited about that set. I loved the party mechanic in Zendikar Rising. And I want to see it more like better explored, because I think that's the kind of stuff that makes Magic good, is hard mechanics to enable. And if we saw more of that, I think that would be good.
Yeah, for sure. I'm warmed up on it. I'm actually getting more and more excited as we get closer. So yeah, absolutely. Lots of new Magic stuff to look forward to. Lots of everything to look forward to.
Hey, Will.
Yes.
Describe this Dandies 2021 in one word.
Breathtaking.
I'm gonna say big, just thick.
Oh yeah. Chungus.
Yeah, it's gonna be a real thick, like meaty year for us. We're gonna have lots of good content, maybe some special stuff sprinkled in. I don't know. We'll see how frisky we're feeling, but thick is the word that comes to mind for me.
Oh, I got another word. Podcast.
Hoggers.
Here's a good one. Free.
Always free until we get a Patreon going, because eventually we would like to be pulled from our day jobs, please.
Oh, I am going to milk the Dandy Dogs for every cent they're worth once we can get this up and going. So I guess to round out our quick hits here, very common question. We haven't talked about this at all. What is your New Year's resolution?
I think I've had the same one every year since about 2016. I think just to kind of like get a little less jokey. You can make fun of me if you want afterwards. It is kind of hammy, but it is just to be a better person. I feel like I am a very self-analytical / critical person to a fault sometimes. I do strive to be better than I was the last year. And I do set very much more like specific goals, which for me last year was to just be less serious, to take things less seriously. And I think I'm going to keep going forward with that approach, because I do think even if I'm not successful, it's a good goal for me to set for myself.
No, that's very admirable. I think that's great. That's a really healthy and mature way to look at it.
What about you? What's your resolution?
My New Year's resolution is to play Death Stranding. Anyway, as we say at the beginning of all our episodes, this is a podcast where two friends share a recommendation with one another. We didn't have an exhortation for this episode, but I have an exhortation for you for our next episode.
I'm excited to hear it. What you got?
Next episode, we are going to be playing Slay the Spire.
I have heard much about this game. It has been recommended to me. I have put it off for as long as I can, and it seems now is the time, right?
This is a lot like Hades for me, where I know I'm going to love this, but I just have not played it yet. From everything that I know about it, it's a combination of roguelike and deck building gameplay. And, we're big Magic players. We love games like Hades and Binding of Isaac. And this has been on my to-play ASAP list for a while, but I kept putting it off. But luckily, I have a podcast that I can use to exploit myself to work through my backlog.
It's been actually super effective. Like, this podcast is like getting me to play stuff that I've been putting off, and Slay the Spire is a great choice in that regard. Neither of us have played it. We're both excited about it. We're both probably going to like it a lot at the very least. So let's try to like bring a little bit of spice to the episode and criticize the shit out of it, so we can like really piss off all the Slay the Spire fans.
Yeah, 2021 is the year where we're going to get super negative.
Super salty. This 2020 was the year of positivity, obviously. We're going to turn that on its head.
Yeah. And on that note, let's get into our back matter. So, other than, coming up with this wonderful list of things you've enjoyed in the last year, what have you been up to since the last time we talked? We did have New Year's Eve. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was good. We mostly spent time, Tristan and I, together with the kids. Did some fun New Year's Eve binge eating, and we watched Mulan, which will not end up on any of my best of lists. Which I really love the original animated film, and in traditional Disney remake fashion, they totally dicked that one up. So it wins the award for like worst piece of media I experienced this year because they took something I already loved and just made it really bad. And the reason being is that they changed a lot, which is fine. I'm all for change. But then it was mostly negative change, and they constantly referenced the stuff we loved from the first movie without actually doing any of it.
Oh, that's very unfortunate.
On a positive note, what I did do, me and Tristan have been getting into this YouTube channel, which was very close. I might make my list next year, called Chocolate Cacao. But it's a novelty sort of like cooking channel where there's no speech. It's mostly silent. And it's just them making these really cool ass desserts,
Wow.
usually chocolate based. Like today they released an episode where it's I believe a younger Japanese man. He uses these like cute cooking sets and like really like high quality ingredients to make really awesome creations. And today he released one where it was like an apple chocolate tart with these roses cut from apples on top of it. It's a super satisfying channel to watch, and we've been just kind of like binging it where we can.
Oh, I'm looking at the channel right now. This looks very interesting. Me and my girlfriend will have to sit down and watch this. Yeah, thank you for this recommendation. I'm going to have to check this out.
Yeah, it has a good sense of humor to it too, so you should enjoy that as well. What about you? What have you been doing since the last episode?
My girlfriend and I had a very, quiet indoors New Year's. We played some Mario Kart. We actually watched Kiki's Delivery Service, which I've seen before, but she hadn't watched in its entirety. So we watched that, and that was nice. I watched some of those, silly like TikTok videos on YouTube, and we just had a really nice, quiet New Year's. Other than that, you and I are playing Dark Souls together, which I probably want to save and talk more in depth at a later date because we're still kind of in the beginnings of getting our characters up, but we'll have to talk about our shared Dark Souls experience.
Yeah, I am interested to hear more thoughts on that from you because from my understanding, it's not really your type of game, but I think that you're kind of seeing kind of what, or at least appreciating on some level what it's got going on. You're being a great sport. You're putting up with a lot of its old ass 2011 game design, and I appreciate that.
Well, regardless, I am enjoying it. And the only other thing I got going on is, and I mentioned it a little bit before, I think this is the first episode where I'm really mentioning this, but I have another podcast. It's called Gutshot. I do it with my co-host, Frederick. And, we did a couple episodes. We took a break for a little bit, but we're coming back stronger than ever. We're trying to do more of a video focus this time. But if you want to hear more about my opinions on Magic, and we do like deck stuff, we talk about the overall community, we do some fun stuff. Our next episode is going to be a real fun brain teaser type episode, but you can check us out wherever you get podcasts. Just search for Gutshot. Look for us on YouTube, especially since we're doing a lot more visual stuff now. Just search Gutshot Pod, and we'd love to have you there for those Magic opinions. And we have got to get you on, Jordan, to talk about your awful Magic opinions.
Okay, I would actually just put a like an earmark in this. We have an Innistrad set or pair of sets coming up. If you can put me on for at least that, I would love to be on that episode.
Okay, sounds good. But yeah, I'm working on that. You'll probably hear me talk about that in the future. But other than that, that's pretty much it.
To your show's credit, I've listened to every episode thus far. Give it some love. It is fantastic. Will is not doing it enough lip service here. It's a really good listen, and if you're into Magic, it's fun to listen to fellow players talk about it as opposed to industry professionals.
As one of my podcast co-hosts, Jordan is required by law contractually to say that, but I appreciate the words. Well, you want to button this one up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Disc Dandies. You can follow Jordan on Twitter at Action Pancake. I'm at Agra Rhetoric on Twitter. We would love it if you would follow along with our exhortations and stay up to date on all the latest Disc Dandies excitement at Disc Dandies Pod. Join us here next episode for another year with the Disc Dandies.
3, 2, 1. Oh, man, I've disrupted Ainsworth.
Oh no, buddy.
He did not like that clap.
Cannot wait to see him. I'm going to clap in his face.
Don't do that. He'll hate it. He's a likes quiet sounds cat.
Atticus is the same way. Atticus is a little skittish, and anytime any noise gets made that he's not expecting, he immediately bolts up and stares in its direction. Very skittish cat.
So much like sloths, I guess we can assume that cats are just like a part of the sleepy time branch of the animal kingdom.
Yeah, I think so. Don't house cats like normally sleep between like 18 and 20 hours a day?
Ours definitely do. I don't know if they're defective or if we're doing something wrong. I think we may have overfed them at some point.